Hello, my name is Jewel Sweeney. I am the executive director of EASE. EASE is a nonprofit based out of South Carolina, working through the state of South Carolina, that focuses on accessibility. So, our 5 year, 10-year goals are to be able to work with anybody needing accessibility, reaching all of those needs. But right now, we are focused on the deaf community, deaf blind community, blind, hard of hearing, visually impaired, that whole group, because that's where my degree lies. So I have a deaf studies degree from Carolina University, and I graduated this past spring and dove straight into this nonprofit. It started in January of 2024, so we've been just plugging away. Um, so we focus particularly like with EASE. What we do is we work with the hearing community and the sighted community, and we say we are advocacy through education. So we are trying to teach the hearing community what it might be like if you are without hearing, if you have hearing loss. How can we make it more accessible? What would you need in order to have the same access that the hearing people do? And just to kind of like get people to start thinking about it, we do a lot of immersive events. So people get to wear things like earplugs or hearing aids or noise canceling headphones or headphones with tinnitus, various glasses, retinopathy, glaucoma, things like that. And so they sit in a room and experience what it's like to have lower vision and lower hearing, or the amplifier hearing aids, and hear absolutely every sound and that overwhelming experience. And after a presentation that we know they're not going to hear everything of, we do a quick 10-minute presentation on deaf education in America, and just kind of some fun facts, nothing political, no right or wrong, except, when we talk about Alexander Graham Bell. But we tell about the history of education, the good and the bad, and they get a little quiz to see what they picked up. And then afterwards, we talk about it. How focused were you? How many of you just checked out? You were done. Okay, so what about our students going through this? What about your coworker who's in a work meeting? What about your parents as they age, or you as you age? So we go through all of those different, how are people feeling? They don't get to put these things into a basket at the end of the day. They live with it. It's not 10 minutes of their lives, it is the life. What can we do to make the entire world more accessible so that it's not an issue when somebody comes in? And so we talk about universal design. We talk about different accessibility, simple things using live transcriptions on your phone. I can't tell you the amount of people who have lost hearing and say, oh my gosh, I can do this in the doctor's office. What? So for us, that's the really cool thing, is that we're tackling how people see the deaf community, because a lot of people just assume they're born deaf or they get a fever when they're 2 and they learn sign language, and I don't know sign language, so I don't have to do anything. That's not the case. There are people who lose their hearing when they're 20, when they're 40, when they're 80. We have a wide variety. There are ASL users, there are PSE users, there are no ASL or no PSE, no sign. There's technology focus. We've got to know the options available to us. And then when somebody comes in, we have to be just kind. We're not asking for a lot. We're asking to just be kind. Um, and so when I was actually starting my nonprofit and going through this and finishing my degree, I actually took the time to go through USIDHR, which is the U.S. Institute of Diplomacy and Human Rights. There you go. That's a mouthful. And I got a certificate for human rights education training. I don't, I haven't used it per se directly. And it's not necessarily a plan of mine that I will be doing this on a regular basis, but it is good to know these things. So when I was going through this training, obviously I love Eleanor Roosevelt. I think she was just so full of wisdom and gumption and giddy up, let's go. So I love what Roosevelt brought to the table and the fact that she did it in a time of male dominance, that she was able to step in and go, this is important, y'all, and we need to pay attention. And she did it on a world stage. And those things were unheard of. And still today, it's clearly not the majority, as we all know. But I love the wisdom that she brought and continues to instill in us. But as they developed these rights, these 30 articles, right? We've got the 30 articles of human rights. A lot of times we don't think, well, this doesn't affect me. Like, how is this going to work with what I'm doing? You know, talking about enslavement and torture and, oh, we're not doing that. It's 2024 and I'm in America. That, well, first of all, we know Carolina University has students all over the world. So let's open our eyes to that. And secondly, what's the definition of torture? What's the definition of enslavement? Some of these things, when you look at them a little more nitty gritty, you can see how they very much do apply. When we talk about education, we know if you have been through Carolina University and you've been through ASL 1 through any of them, you know that education has taken a hit in America, particularly for the deaf community. We know that we don't have the right interpreters, enough interpreters, qualified interpreters. We know that we are lacking in accessibility within the classroom. We know that I talked to a teacher yesterday. She works particularly with deaf and deafblind students. She came from Utah. She was at the School for the Deaf and Blind. She moved to my area, and I got to meet her this weekend. She was really cool. And she is a student who's deafblind and wheelchair bound. And in our district, they have something called reflections, and everybody gets to put forth an art form of kind of telling who they are. So my kids dance, and I've seen a lot of their friends do dancing routines, and they win, their reflection for this beautiful choreographed dance. We've had writers and artists and poets, and it's just all art forms are represented, and it's just really cool. Well, this child had said, I want to do a reflection. And so the teacher said, or not necessarily her teacher, her one-on-one, her interventionist said, okay, let's do it. And she went to the principal and she was like, hey, my student wants to do this. And the principal was like, oh, she can't do that. Why would you have her do that? She's not capable of that. Y'all, it is 2024, and a principal of an elementary school is telling a child what she can't do. And so this woman said, oh, she can, and she will. And they recorded a video, and the video won. And the video stayed up for a year for like the entire state. It was like in the state library, and all, I mean, it was up in DC. It won. It was very much, it was a great video. So we're still seeing the oppression of humanity. We see it in our education that they have an IEP. It's okay. An IEP just means you need accommodations. And that the range of accommodations is so large that you can't just box people in and say they have an IEP, they can't. I know of another teacher who has become the teacher of a deaf because she lost her hearing and then got cochlears, and she used to be in 5th grade, I believe, and then moved over to be the teacher of the deaf because she wanted to kind of help share her experience. Her experience was being told that she is hearing impaired, and she calls herself and her students hearing impaired. If we brought deaf community members that I am friends with in my area and brought them to that school, and they learned that she was saying hearing impaired, they'd go, impaired? I'm not impaired. I can do everything you can do. I just can't hear. And so we see that focus that still around here in our medical views, we're focusing on the lack of, the what we can't do, instead of the humanity of the person and seeing everything that the person is and what they can do and who they are. And so what we are doing as Ease is using those tenets, those articles. It imprisonment can look like many things. There are imprisonments of the mind, there are mental imprisonments, there are emotional imprisonments. There are different ways that those 30 articles can be applied to what I do and to what you guys are going to do when you get out into your careers. So I see it for myself when I go into a school or when I'm having a conversation with a person. It's one of the main points of our trifolds. I don't even know if I have them close by. But we put it in a trifold of do's and don'ts. And one of the very first things that we say is don't say hearing impaired. Don't say hearing impaired. Do say deaf. Do say hard of hearing. And so we're really just trying to educate. So knowing that the deaf community is being looked at as if they aren't even humans sometime, that is something that you have to keep in mind, because that is what human rights is all about. Human rights is making sure that people are treated like humans. They have all the same rights. Everybody is allowed to vote. Everybody is allowed to pursue their own happiness. Nobody should be enslaved. Nobody should be wrongfully imprisoned. Everybody has a right to education, right? I know that one of them sets an age limit. They should have schooling from this year to this year. Yeah, they should be given that right of education. So when we put these into American society, it still very much applies. It's very, very much an on-topic source for what we do to kind of go into the hearing world and go, hey, you know that deaf people exist? Yeah, they do. And they might want to come shop at your store. They might want to eat at your restaurant. Are you prepared for them? Are you ready for them? Do you have options? Or are you going to stare at them and be scared, not know what to do, and therefore treat them less than? So that is me. That is what we do at Ease. We do advocacy through education, just informing people that there is more to life than what maybe you know or what you grew up with, that even if you see a deaf person, not all deaf people have the same story. Not everybody has the same diagnosis. Not everybody became deaf at the same time. Not everybody wants technology. Not everybody doesn't want technology. There's a wide range that we have to know, understand, and respect. And that is really the basis of human rights, is respect for humans. So I think I've gone over on my time limit. My apologies, Professor Barua. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can email us at easesouthcarolina@gmail.com. And yeah, good luck in your future endeavors.